Try it. Okay, thank you. I don't know. Maybe I'm blind today. That's possible. Um, so this evening we have Eric Wilson, who's currently the Tree People Native Garden Kit Program Manager. And he has 20 years of experience in environmental education, working to integrate sustainability into school programs. And this evening, he's going to introduce us to the Tree People Native Garden Kit program and also tell us a little bit about some of the things that Tree People as an organization is involved in. So thank you so much, Eric, for showing up this evening. And if you want, go ahead and share your screen and make your presentation.
Excellent. Well, first of all, thank you for having me, everybody. Appreciate it. Excited to be here, and going to be presenting mostly about the kit, but a little bit about, as Snowdy mentioned, what Tree People is working on currently, including the project that I manage, and then I'm also in our green infrastructure department. I'll be talking a little bit about some of the exciting work that we're doing there. So can everyone see the slide? Excellent. Thank you. All right. So for those that are familiar, Tree People, this is our 50th anniversary. If you're in the LA area and involved or interested in native plants, hopefully you've at least come across some of the work we've done or heard our name. We were started by a high school student, a 15-year-old, 50 years ago. You can do the quick math there, but really powerful organization, one that I had an opportunity to be involved in when I was director of sustainability at a charter school in West Valley, and have had an opportunity to work on both sides of the equation. So I'm going to speak a little bit about my experience as a recipient of some of their work, and then also having joined the team as well. And I actually think tomorrow is my 1-year anniversary. I think I started on the 15th, although it could have been the 14th, but it was right around this time last year. So somewhat new to the organization, but I've been working on projects with them going back about 8-10 years. If you're not familiar, our mission is to inspire, engage, and support people to take personal responsibility for the urban environment. One of the major ways we see that happening is getting people to volunteer. One really significant statistic that we're very proud of is we've planted 3 million trees with 3 million volunteer hours or volunteers over the last 50 years. So a really big impact that we've been able to have in the greater Los Angeles area. And so the organization really started with a vision from Andy Lipkus, who was a student at University High in West LA, and has kind of grown from being really focused on trying to get more trees in the ground to a whole suite of programs. And I'll talk about that shortly here. And as it says there, our mission really is centered on people. It's in the name, obviously, and we often talk about, people need trees and trees need people. It is a reciprocal relationship, and that's really integral to the work that we do. Recently, about 4 or 5 years ago, Mountains Restoration Trust, which is formerly known as MRT, was have merged with Tree People. And so the program that I manage is really based out of our land trust, formerly known as MRT. So for those that are in that Santa Monica Mountains area, Topanga, Calabasas, Malibu, you may be familiar with MRT. That's the old moniker, but still definitely respond to queries when people say, hey, do you work for MRT? I work under the land trust, although I'm transitioning to the main campus, for those that are familiar, which is the one on Coldwater Canyon at the intersection of Coldwater and Mulholland. So the old MRT site, again, is where this program was based out of initially. It's at the headwaters corner in Calabasas, and the land trust manages something on the order of 3,000 acres, usually land that's been gifted for conservation. If you're familiar at all, the 2016 old fire, I believe there was a utility pole that was struck and that burnt down the old building, and now we're in a historic 1890s homestead home, which is kind of a neat facility. So if you're ever at that location where Calabasas High School is, we encourage people to come by and say hello. Some of the key initiatives of Tree People in general, the greening our schools, and I'm talking about that in a few minutes because that's really taken a big focus lately. Volunteer work, cleaning up trails, planting trees, caring for trees, and then the parks, including the land trust. So these are some of the key components of the work that we do. So much of it is volunteer based. We do have a fairly substantial staff these days, as evidenced by someone who's only been around for a year. We've grown quite a bit in the last, really since the pandemic. And it's really become a much more robust organization. I'm not sure for those who are familiar. Unfortunately, our CEO did pass recently. She'd been stricken with cancer, but she really, Cindy Montañez, had really pushed for Tree People to be actively involved in communities, and especially what we call our bright spot communities. So communities that we'd like to try and increase the shade equity, may have been under invested in for years. We're working in places like Huntington Park in Southeast Los Angeles, working in Southgate, a lot of communities to try and bring nature back to those areas and increase their resilience. Some of the other work that we do, a lot of community organizing, education. We are the largest environmental education organization in the United States, I believe. And part of the reason being is that we have the contract with LA County Works, so that we are in all 81 school districts in Los Angeles County, providing environmental education. Forestry, working in the Angeles Forest and in our urban forestry programs, that reforestation, planting trees in urban environments as well. As I mentioned, the parks and trails. Then we have a policy and research department, and a big part of the policy and research is advocacy, but also the grant that is funding the. Let's see here. Oops, sorry. The grant that's funding this Green Schoolyards program that I'm going to talk about came out of that policy work. So for those who are familiar, the CAL FIRE, the $150 million grant that was, $150 million program that was for grants that was recently passed. Tree People was allocated a significant portion of that, about 12%, to green schoolyards, and I'm going to talk about a little bit of what that looks like. But a lot of that came out of the work that our policy team did, and our most recent CEO was instrumental in working with a lot of the connections as a former assembly member in making sure that got passed. So this idea of green schoolyards, one of the focuses, and I was at a school today, Parmalee Elementary, looking to remove asphalt. We're on track through this grant to remove something like 452,000 square feet of asphalt, replace it with trees, with some natural grass areas, native gardens, a lot of different features, outdoor learning spaces. So a big focus lately has been in this area of trying to bring nature back into schools, especially schools that have a significant portion of their campus that's covered in pavement. A lot of the benefits, I'm sure, for those that are involved in or interested in this area, supporting the quality of air, water, physical and mental health, connecting students with nature. A lot of studies have shown, if you're familiar with the work of Richard Louv, Last Child in the Woods, and nature deficit disorder, so a lot of research that's been done showing how integral, important, and valuable connecting students, and really all humans, but with the more than human world. So that's a big part of the work that we're doing in the Green Schoolyards program. And then this is a recently completed program. Obviously, a lot of the salvia you see up front, or in the foreground, pardon me, and just bringing back these natural spaces so that we expose students and adults as well, but really focusing on that, getting kids to connect with nature and the flora and the fauna, as you see kind of below with the hummingbird. We have a lizard, our flying friends as well. So the big focus right now, I think there's 17 or 18 schools that we're partnering with to help reimagine their asphalt schoolyards, and the native garden being part of that. And I'll talk about the kit here in a moment. Here it is. The Native Garden Kit program is fairly new. We received funding from ARLA, and for those who are familiar, it's Accelerating Resilience Los Angeles, and it is headed by our former CEO, Andy Lipkis. So definitely a connection between the two organizations. The Native Garden Kit program was born out of a discussion with Dave Roberts, who unfortunately also passed. He was at Los Virgenes Municipal Water District, and he had learned about a program out of Boulder, Colorado, from Resource Central, a nonprofit called Garden in a Box. So he was really excited. That program has been around for more than 20 years, and he wanted to bring something like that here. I know other organizations have done kits before and continue to do kits, and really just this idea of trying to make native gardens accessible, affordable, and hassle-free. That's kind of the three highlights of what this program is attempting to accomplish. So making it accessible, making it affordable, and making it hassle-free. And so ideally, we want to help people reduce their water consumption. We want to beautify the urban environment and support native plants and nurseries across native plant nurseries across Southern California. We, as I mentioned, a fairly new program. I started almost exactly a year ago. We began with 2 kits that we offered in the spring. I'll talk about those real briefly. We still offer them. Then we expanded to offer 4 options this past fall. So we've distributed most of those kits. We have one more event coming up. Backwards. Probably I'm going to sneeze for a second here. Took me a second. And then we're offering 6 options now for spring 2024 distribution. And that pre-order is now live. It started November 1st. So this pre-order is this time where we're offering these kits at a reduced price, and I'll share some of the details as well. So the program's growing steadily. We're trying to grow in a sustainable fashion. We've had interest from water districts in Ventura County to partner with us all the way down to San Diego. That's not in our wheelhouse at this point, as we are really in a pilot phase, especially as we're grant funded. So each kit comes with 10 1-gallon native plants, and we really do focus on native Southern California species. Some of them are cultivars, but we do focus on species from Southern California to try and best match the ecosystem. Our intention is to design or to replace or fit a 100 square foot garden space. We really see this program as a foot in the door, so to speak, to try and get people to ease their way into native plants. So if you're on this call and you're really excited about native plants but haven't dipped your toe in yet, this is an opportunity or a way to make some inroads there. If you're someone who's master gardener, I'm pretty sure I saw someone who's a master gardener. We love to hear people's feedback. So wherever you are in your journey, each kit comes with 4 to 6 species. We're kind of settled around 5 now. We provide 1 anchor plant that's usually 4 to 6 feet at maturity, a couple mid-height plants, and then 1 to 2 ground cover species. And in addition to providing you with the plants, we provide a plant by number sitemap, and I'll show some examples of that in a moment, and then a native plant installation guide and some educational materials. And those are available also as a digital copy on our website. You don't have to purchase anything. The physical copy we provide just helps people through that process of how do I plant, how do I care for the tending, stewarding, maintaining of the plants. The one nice thing about the digital copy, which again is available for free, is that it has links to videos and English and Spanish videos and articles as well. Whereas right now the installation guide is just in English, but as we grow the program, we're looking to develop that in Spanish and see if there are needs in other languages as well. So I mentioned in the spring of 2023, we started with 2 kits. We had one that we are now calling our Sunshine Super Bloom. It just used to be referred to as our Full Sun kit. For the spring 2024, for the kits that are on sale now, I'm pretty sure this is accurate. This is the plant palette, and then the number in front of it is the quantity of the plants. And so we have these nice, I think digital cards is how our marketing design team refer to it. just to kind of give a nice little visual of what that looks like and what each flowering version of the plant. And we do stick with flowering versions, I think, just for that aesthetic piece to kind of bring some of the joy. Ideally, we get pollinators as well to come by, support again that local fauna in addition to the flora. So this is our Sunshine Super Bloom, which has been right now is the most popular for this current sale cycle. And then we also had one which we used to call the partial shade, and a little more fun name, we now call it Splendid Silhouettes. And for this is actually the current one, not for the spring, because we did replace our Ceanothus, just given how large it can get to be. But again, the species of the quantities. So this is the one that was being currently distributed, but you'll notice in the card has the species that will be in the fall, in the spring. So we have Lepichinia fragrans, or the fragrant pitcher sage, will be swapped in, and then we'll be putting Solidago, or the California goldenrod. So that's a switch. What the text is what's being distributed now, and then that card below is what is coming for the spring version. This the full sun one, the Sunshine Super Bloom, is still the same. And then in the fall, we added our Pollinators Paradise to try and encourage people to plant and attract pollinators. And we have the card here, which I believe has stayed the same. And we also added for the fall one that we're calling Year-Round Radiance, in this intention to try and give a little bit of color at different points throughout the year. So you'll see some of the similar species we're having. And then again, there's a small change for the spring. We are bringing in a woodland strawberry, the Fragaria vesca, and swapping that out for, I think, the blue-eyed grass. So a slight change from the fall to what will be coming. That card is again the spring. And then we're adding two more for this current sale period. If you remember, I mentioned Dave Roberts was the gentleman at Las Virgenes who brought this program to us. It passed unexpectedly. And so in his honor, we put together what we're calling Dave's Delights. Reached out to some of his former coworkers, his friends and family, and these are some of his favorite species. And there's some unique ones that we don't have in other kits, like the Archelastaphus, the manzanita, even the narrowleaf milkweed. A little tough the time of year, but really wanted to honor Dave and his passion. If you've ever been to Las Virgenes Municipal Water District's headquarters on Las Virgenes Road in Calabasas, on the west side of the grade in the Conejo Valley, you'll see their really phenomenal gardens, and a lot of that was his passion. And so this is Dave's Delights. And then we're also added a shaded symphony, and this is a full shade species. So notice a couple of the ones we have in others, the Euchera, the Western Columbine was in the Dave's Delights, and the Woodland Strawberry is now in our Year-Round Radiance. And we have the card down there. So each of these kits during this pre-order phase, we're offering for $100. That includes all 10 plants, it includes the guide, it includes the site map, which I'll show in a moment. And all these resources. We are working with some water districts that are even providing a discount on that, and I'll talk about that as well in a moment. We are only able to offer 250 right now. We actually are already at, I think, 179 kits sold. So we only have about 71 remaining. So if you are interested, I do recommend taking a look at it. And I'll talk a little bit more here in a moment about some of the some other aspects of the program, but just something to keep an eye on if you're thinking about it. So in the past, we had provided, as I mentioned, the Sunshine Super Bloom used to just be called, or sorry, the Splendid Silhouettes just used to be called the Partial Sun, and we used to use the Ribes Aureum, the Golden Currant. We swapped that out for the Catalina Currant or the Evergreen Currant, just a little bit more of a robust plant. It's not non-deciduous. Golden Currant is really amazing, but when it does lose its leaves, it looks a little bit less robust. And then we had the Full Sun, which is now called our Sunshine Super Bloom. So these are the spring renderings, but then we added this landscape schematic, and the next slide will be updated images in a landscape schematic. But you can see on the right, this ceanothus is that kind of organic shape. It can grow to nearly 100 square feet at full maturity. So we did swap that out, since the intention of the program is to fill 100 square feet with all 10 plants, not with the one plant on its own. But now, this is should see current garden layout. This is our 3D rendering from our landscape designer. This is again our Sunshine Super Bloom, and then on the right is the landscape schematic version of it. So same kit, you get both the 3D rendering printed out and the landscape schematic to help you visualize it at full maturity and kind of how to plant and organize should you choose to follow these designs. We encourage people to explore, but we also are, again, we're trying to make that hassle-free and take a lot of the guesswork out of it with these designs. So I'm just gonna share a little bit about the kit distribution. We've hosted 3 distribution events this fall. We have one more for plants that were purchased over the summer. That's gonna be at our headquarters. So one of our partners is Callegas Municipal Water District. They are a wholesaler. That's pretty much the eastern half of Ventura County. So those 2 at once. So we had our plants delivered there. You can see this fuchsia in the foreground and the Clevelandii. I think it's the Winifred Gilmans in the background. Actually, those might be the Pozo Blue with the yarrow in front. And we were boxing them up and delivering them as people drove up. Each kit, 10 plants in the box. Another shot. This one is our splendid silhouettes. You can see the ribes in the lower left-hand corner, and the Gambelia in the lower right-hand corner, the Euchera as well. And then load them into people's cars. Sometimes, as you can notice on this one, a little bit tall and had to kind of tuck it in there, but a really nice event. People really excited. I think we distributed 74 one day and 76 the next day, something like that. So really good response so far from the community. And then one of our other partners is Las Virgenes Municipal Water District, and again, largely from our connection with Dave Roberts and bringing this to us. So we hosted an event there a week ago Saturday. The November 4th was our most recent distribution, and you can see some of the Sincellia in the front, part of Dave's garden that he envisioned. And then for those that might be familiar with one of my colleagues, Amanda Begley, she's been at TreePeople for a number of years and works on this program with me, a great asset for the community and just TreePeople in general. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the benefit of native plants. I understand there may be a range, again, of people's knowledge here. So if you know some of these facts already, fantastic. If it's new to you, hope you can learn a little bit. So, oops, let's go back here. So this idea of water consumption, those that have heard the statistic, on the order of 70% of our water residentially is allocated to lawns. Some people, it's quite a bit less, but that is a number that's often thrown around. I was at the presentation on the 4th in the afternoon with Charles Miller, and he had used that number as well. And I'm still looking for that source, but I've heard it mentioned quite often. I also have seen 30 to 50%, but this idea of the significant portion of our water, and sometimes the majority, is allocated to residential water consumption is lawn. So really trying to reduce that water, supporting wildlife. Showed some of those images of pollinators that have come through. They've adapted and evolved with these food sources and trying to bring them back. And then this maintenance, stewardship of the plants, foregoing fertilizer and inputs like NPK, phosphorus, potassium, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, really trying to reduce the chemical inputs into our lawns, into our yards. And then, we talk about low water plants and climate friendly. Well, the best kind are California natives, really, in our estimation, and I think CNPS would agree. And we use the term Mediterranean climate, but I think when we think about just as kind of California and really Southern California, bringing in plants that are from here, that thrive here, that support the ecosystem are such valuable assets. And in fact, that they don't require inputs like fertilizers is really key. So some of the benefits as we see it. I love this graph. If you can kind of see, there's the red dotted line and the blue dotted line, and they're almost exactly in sync. So the blue line is the number of inches of rain per month, and the red line is the kind of requirement of native plants. Since we get next to zero, and as a former teacher, really zero should be this dark line at the bottom, not this line above here. But I think it helps to show really we get next to no rain from June to August, September, very rarely. But the beauty is that the California natives really, they require water during the winter, which is when we have our precipitation and that natural irrigation. So this really drives home the point for me in thinking about that connection between water needs of plants and when we have precipitation. And then for those that are familiar with SMC, Santa Monica City College, Santa Monica College, the 20-year running now project of comparing a traditional landscape, which maybe not using use the word traditional, just a Western European East Coast landscape versus what should be called traditional, because it would be from Southern California as is, a sustainable landscape. And the reduction, the water usage drops 80 to 90%, the yard waste, something on the order of 63% reduction, and even the maintenance hours, 75 odd percent fewer maintenance hours are required to maintain a sustainable landscape. So really, it's something that makes a lot of sense. It's not a zero maintenance. I replaced my yard just over a year ago, and I need to go out and tend occasionally. But it is something that it's not a mow and blow. It's more of an art than a clear cutting as well. So I mentioned that we have some rebates available through our water district partners. So there's the $100 pre-order price, but we also are fortunate to partner with Callegas and Las Virgenes right now to offer rebates directly to homeowners. And the way that works, many of you may be familiar with the $2+ per square foot lawn replacement through BeWaterWise, SoCal Water Smart. I live in Thousand Oaks, and I got my rebate through California Water, but they all go through that same metropolitan water district's bigger program of turf replacement. So this is in addition to that. You can piggyback the two if you're replacing more than 250 square feet. So we're working with local water districts, and on our website you can determine if you're eligible. So here's kind of a screenshot of our website. You'll see that there's a button that says determine your rebate eligibility. You click on that, and I thought I had the screen up. You'll get a form where you put in your email, your address, and your name. You click submit, and it pops up. If you are eligible, it says you'll receive instructions within 2 days. If not, it says please check back, because we are trying to expand working with our partners. So what happens if you do find that you're eligible? We are going to be working with West Basin. We're still in the process of developing that, so I understand there are Malibu and Topanga folks on the call, and I'll talk a little bit about the work that we'll be doing there in a moment. We are working with them to offer the rebate as well. It's still in development, though. There are people living in Malibu and Topanga that are Las Virgenes Municipal Water District customers, and they are eligible for the rebate. But you do need to follow the instructions and make sure that you kind of take care of that. And that reduces the price by $50 per kit with a max of 5 kits. So a little bit about the future of the program, specifically Malibu to Topanga. As I mentioned, we are in discussions with the water district serving Malibu and Topanga. It's the West Basin. They've applied for a grant. It's referred to as IRWM, it's like Interregional Water Management Plan. I might be messing that up a little bit, and so they're looking to secure funds through that. And part of what it's earmarked is to help customers, their people in their service area, offset the cost of these kits. So when that becomes available, we'll announce the availability to those who are eligible, and then we'll have them go through the process of filling out that survey, which is, again, just your name, email address, and physical address. And then again, that note, people who are Las Virgenes customers who live in Topanga and Malibu are eligible for that rebate. And if you're not 100% sure, you can always go on the website and just put your name and information, and I will contact you within 2 days. In addition to that, looks like it's frozen here a little bit. I think this is, yes, kits. So we're looking to add 2 kits potentially that would be more earmarked for Malibu and Topanga as the program grows. A particular interest, we're looking at a Firewise kit, and that will include species that are particularly well adapted to fire-prone areas. And as I'm sure people are aware, there is no such thing as a fireproof plant. However, there are some that are better adapted or can be more resilient. And I met with the Malibu city biologist last year, and she provided me with the list of plants that are approved. So we do use all those resources when we're building the kit out to make sure that it's not just eligible, but that it makes sense and ecologically, and it's also going to be approved. And then we're also looking at a coastal kit. Native plants found primarily along the coast, and again, have been pre-approved by the city of Malibu. I know there are some restrictions on what you can plant or what they ask that you plant. And if you are in a high-risk fire area, you are supposed to get your plans approved. So this would be something you could just provide to the fire department for approval. So that's kind of the bulk of it. These are some of our partners. I mentioned Arla, Las Virgenes Municipal Water District, Callegas. Most of our plants, or a good percentage of our plants, to say, come from Growing Works. There's part of the Turning Point Foundation in Camarillo. We also partner with a couple other nurseries in Southern California. And then Dashboard Earth is an app which anyone living in LA County is encouraged to check out. There is a pathway specifically for the native garden kits. It can give you timely information on care and help you track how much water you could be saving. Here's the invitation if you're interested in learning more directly about the Native Garden Kit pathway on Dashboard Earth. They do a lot of different giveaways and information. They're focusing a lot on composting right now in LA County as well. So just a way to kind of support and keep track of your native garden kits if you're interested. And then the last slide is just my contact information, and then we can open it up. Was definitely trying to keep it under 45 minutes. I know it's late at night, and there's my email information. This is a group email, so right now it goes directly to me, but as other members of the team come on board, be able to answer questions. So feel free to reach out at nativegarden@treepeople.org, and I can leave that there for a moment. So with that, Snowdy, I will turn it over to you, and I'll stop my share here.
Do you want to unshare? Yeah. So far I only got one question in the chat, and it was regarding the school gardening photos and
yes,
the showing some non-native trees in the schoolyards.
Yep.
Is there any plan to try to push to replace those non-native trees with oaks, walnuts, elderberry?
Yeah, so we are at the behest of LAUSD and their approved plant lists. So that is, as anyone who has a family member that's gone through LAUSD, that presents some challenges, but absolutely, we are constantly advocating for use of native plants. And if you're familiar with our nursery, lots of walnuts and oaks that our nursery manager, Jack Smith, is growing from acorn or from seedlings. So that is something we are always advocating for, but it sometimes depends on the partners at the district and what is in their approved list. And not that oaks wouldn't be in their approved list per se, but I do know that they have final say, although we can absolutely advocate for certain species.
Mary Montes has her hand up.
Hi, Eric.
Mary?
Um, I noticed in one of your kits, one of the plants you had listed was Dudley's.
Yes.
And that's kind of prompting me to ask you how, what is your plan for educating people as to how to take care of their plants, such as how to water, which is not the
Yes.
same way you water grass, when to water,
Yeah.
watering in the summer, which can be very tricky. And even when to plant,
For sure.
because if somebody in the San Fernando Valley buys a kit from you in the spring, in February or March, plants a bunch of plants, those may not be alive come October of that year. So I'm just wondering,
Yeah.
what is your plan for educating people?
For sure. Great question. So I'll start with the Dudleya. So the Dudleya, especially for that one kid, is as an ode to Dave Roberts, the fact that succulents and native succulents were some of his favorites. We included that. But each of the, if you remember in the slide, we talk about what comes in the kit. I said there's a digital version of our handout. We do talk about the maintenance and watering. And then the sheet that we actually give people that has the 3-dimensional rendering and the landscape schematic on the back side is a chart that has all the maintenance tips, the watering needs of each plant in that kit. As far as the spring piece goes, we definitely are pushing the fall as the main planting season. Part of the reason we have the spring is our grant it requires us to have a spring distribution. I tried to push it as early as I could. Last year, since I didn't start till November, I really didn't get them out the door until end of March, early April. And I did get some people saying, oh, my kit died, but they actually didn't plant them. They were keeping them in the pots, which this can be even more detrimental to the plant. But we are trying to push that earlier and earlier. And part of that was based on the funding and trying to have a fall sale and a spring sale. And so we are trying to shift those forward as much as possible. So our fall 2023 sale was June 1st to September 30th, but I think we're even going to push that to August and August 30th and try and hit that tight window of November distribution. And then if we do a spring sale again, since this is coming on the end of our grant, we'll be revisiting that it would be more of like a holiday and having that distribution be, December, January. But absolutely, we are trying to encourage people to plant in the fall as much as possible. One of the things that we also give out is a quarter-page card encouraging people to plant within 14 days of getting their kit. We don't want people to keep them in the pots. I know not everyone has a yard, and some people are asking about containers. These aren't necessarily designed for container gardens, as I'm sure you're aware, but we have also looked at, could we do a container specific kit for people who are maybe in Beverly or like Century City, Culver City, they don't have a yard. So part of the piece is we are trying to encourage people to plant them right away. We are trying to push it more towards the fall. Definitely that conversation about fall is our spring in terms of that's when we plant, as opposed to in Eastern US, you plant after the snow melts, and that's why we really plant spring. But here we are trying to encourage people to plant in the fall. So that spring distribution is partly our grant stipulation, but we also are looking to have probably 2 different distributions. So it'll be maybe early fall and an early winter moving forward. I know you got a couple of different parts to that address.
Yeah, it's just that as we see time and time again, people plant their plants, but they really don't know how to take care of native plants.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And so they treat their native plants like they treat their ornamentals, and
Yes.
and they die very quickly.
Yes. So I mentioned a little bit in the packet, but also that native garden of the the dashboard of Earth's pathway, getting some hints about how to care for. One of the things that the real quick sound bite, if you will, that I give people said, once it doubles in size, it's established and you don't need to water it. I do talk about only really watering it during winter drought once it's established. That even that chart that I mentioned on the back of the sheet says, for someone once during the summer. I don't personally water mine. I didn't water mine at all this summer, and I just planted them last fall. I was obviously very fortunate with my timing and that rain that we had, but really as a demonstration, absolutely that they do rely on precipitation. They will go dormant in the summer, and I heard someone explaining it to another person. The summer is like our winter. That's when they go dormant, and that's okay. And you don't just douse them with water. The full shade kit, the Shaded Symphony, they do require a little bit more moisture, but we also are trying to help people understand that that is intended for a full shade if it's on the north side of your house or between two buildings if there's not much space. And that's not one of the kits that we really focus on, but we do try and help people understand that you're not watering it during the summer. That first year you may need to get it established, but really we're trying to get them so that they are self-reliant, so to speak.
There was another question. Do you need volunteers for your distribution events?
That's a great question. Yes, we'd love to have volunteers, especially those really big events. Callejas, and then Las Verges is going to be a really big one, February 23rd, 24th. And what our system, we have a calendar on our website. You can reach out to me, absolutely. But we also have a calendar on our website. Usually it's about 3 to 4 weeks out. The events will be posted and you can sign up through there. But you can also reach out to nativegarden@treepeople.org. And we had probably about 3 or 4 different roles. For people that are really knowledgeable native plants, people are always asking questions. It's wonderful to have someone who's knowledgeable to help people, kind of to Mary's point, to really do that education about what is it that you should be looking for, or what is it that you are hoping to accomplish, or how can I support my native plants, as opposed to absolutely treating them like a rose bush, an ornamental, something that's non-native. And it is an education piece, but volunteers, they help with everything from checking people in, bringing kits over for those that are able-bodied, for those that prefer to be or either are unable to or prefer to kind of not be front-facing. We have other tasks that we can always use help with. So I do appreciate that question.
I had a question myself, actually a couple. This is a new program, it sounds like.
Yes.
Have you done any kind of work to kind of codify success rate? You just mentioned that someone had said all their plants died because they didn't put them in the ground.
Right.
But I'm talking about people who actually got their plants in the ground. What's the follow-up? Do you have any backup photos that people could see? Oh, this is what Dave's Delights looks like, or this is what Sunshine Super Bloom looks like after a year. Or
yeah, no, it's a great question. So I'm going to show you real quickly what we share with people to encourage them to plant. So I'm going to share my screen here again for a second. So in addition to all the other handouts, we started providing these. So you can see it's 4. We cut them into quarters, calling it Share Your Success. As I mentioned, encouraging people to plant within 14 days, and then using social media to share. So Native Garden Kit 2023. So if people continue to post with that, you can see over time what it looks like. In the spring, we'd have 2024. This is one area. I also do send out a survey after a couple of weeks with the intention, hopefully, that people have planted. And I ask them, have you planted yet? What barriers are there? To try and understand what some of the challenges are. And I do ask for people to send pictures. I only got pictures from a couple participants in the first round, but it was a start. That survey will go out probably, today's Tuesday, it'll probably go out tomorrow, since it's been 10 days. since we had that most recent distribution. And then the people who are picking up December 2nd, which is our last distribution day for the current period, they'll get the survey within 10 to 12 days afterwards. And the questions that are, again, yeah, some of the things like, did you replace your lawn? Did you apply for a rebate if you did replace it? They're conditional questions. Yeah, what are some of the challenges you faced? So a piece of information along that line to help us understand as we try and improve the program, because absolutely it is. This was just our second distribution and our first real full one. The grant required us to offer 150 kits in the spring of 2023, 250 kits in the fall of 2023, and another 250 in the spring 2024. And so, you know, the more feedback we get, the more information can help us understand what's successful. The program this is based off of is using 4-inch plants. We are using 1 gallon, so it's a little bit more robust of a plant that we're providing to people. But it's also, a lot of people say, hey, I don't have a green thumb, I'm not sure. And I think to Mary's point that, you know, people might treat them like a non-native and kind of drown it. So that is something we do, some of that quick education, but there's that follow-up survey to try and get some responses from people.
How long is this grant going to continue?
It's a 2-year grant, so it actually started a little bit before I joined. I think September of 2022 was the start of the grant. It took a little bit of time for me to come on board. So it really, this summer, it will fund the position as I work with water districts to try and provide more access to people. So we are planning to continue it regardless of the grant funding. But so I kind of mentioned a little bit that originally I was hired as a native garden kit manager. With my background in schools, I'm working kind of half with the native garden kit program and half with our school greening. So I will still be dedicating time to it, but I'm trying to reduce the administrative overhead, so to speak, and just have it be self-sufficient by trying to, you know, make everything as streamlined as possible. The development of the pallets, the creation of the materials, the distribution. So volunteers are really appreciated and always encouraged, because that helps us keep the overhead down. We are a nonprofit as well. I know CNPS is, and definitely at the end of the day, we are a volunteer heavy organization, and that really makes it work ultimately, and makes it available to everyone.
Okay, somebody just made a comment on 70% water saving of native plant after reading the Living Desert Zoo and Gardens. The cool season turf grass is measured at 100% evapotranspiration. Most natives are Wukol's low water, 10 to 30%. All right.
Those numbers sound very familiar. And I know it's the percentage of evapotranspiration is what's kind of the gold standard in comparing native plants. Yeah, I appreciate that, George. I think it's important to have the data. Some people really benefit from knowing, okay, here's the exact kind of, pardon the term, apples to apples comparison, or kind of a one-to-one comparison, as opposed to kind of a general. And I think that the evapotranspiration is that standard that really helps. So like, if you have X square feet of this plant versus X square feet of this, what's that comparison? So that is really helpful. But yeah, I think that the piece we were also trying and push towards, my sister's a Davis grad, so I do appreciate the Wukol's information out there. Thank you. Yeah, I think that the idea we're really trying to help people understand, we will be looking possibly as a rain garden kit as well. This idea of trying to capture rainwater on people's properties, you know, think of the Measure W style, and whatever we can store underground, whatever we can keep from flowing off into the stormwater system, whatever can be maintained. And in addition to reducing our water, thinking about as an abundance of water. Now, how can we keep all that water on our properties? How can we keep it in our city as opposed to having it end up in the storm drain and end out in the ocean? All that fresh water is really an asset, and can we recharge our groundwater? And you helping use these plants as they send those deep roots into the soil. It's such an amazing. Yeah, I like to think of a biomimicry. Nature's already solved so many of these problems. Why do we try and engineer, the artificial turf debacle? And we have a solution already. These native plants do such an amazing job, and we definitely are trying to help people ease their way into it. I think ultimately, and again, this kind of goes back to Mary's point. I think people are sometimes they're uncomfortable. They don't know, and they don't have the information. We are trying to make it as, I'll go back to hassle-free as possible. It still requires education. It still requires some information. We are trying to use hardier plants. We are trying to use species. We are trying to use under the CalScape designation. So thank you, CNPS, for CalScape. It is a phenomenal tool. I love it so much. Kind of the ease of use or ease of care plants, we really try and focus more on those than even anything else. Some of the specialty ones, like in the Dave's Delights and the Shaded Symphony, I think some are more the moderate ease. But absolutely, we're trying to plants that are going to survive. We do want still diversity. You notice that the epilobium, the fuchsia, shows up in a couple different kits. You'll notice that a couple other species, the salvia clevelandii, shows up in a couple different kits. We're aiming for diversity, but we're also aiming for hardiness. So I'm trying to find that balance in developing these kits. And I'm not an expert by any stretch. I'm always open for ideas. I know Snowdy, Mary, I know we had a call months and months ago, and you had just a wonderful idea. So please, George, as well. Thank you. And I think it's really a dialogue at the end of the day. Bill, I do appreciate the point about the trees, and that is something that's LUSD, I think they're starting to turn the corner a little bit, and I'm not here to badmouth them at all. I just think it's, they've had a standard for so long, and it is a big change it's a paradigm shift, it's really sad in some ways, because native species have been here forever, essentially, obviously, and we are trying to make our way back to that. So I applaud anyone who's doing work towards that goal. I think it's admirable. And to Mary's point too about people, if they fail, it's okay if some of them die. I actually just pulled out some flannel bush because it wasn't quite working, and I put in some of the salvias that we had left over because I bought a couple kits because I live in Cayugas, so I took advantage of our program. And I'm not a designer, and I threw out species all over the place. I had some Penstemon tonii. I had some Trichostemma Midnight Magic that I got, which has done really well, which is a cultivar hybrid I got from Matilaha out in Moore Park. I think give it a try. And every time I see, especially in Calabasas, because I'm driving to the land trust, and I see this either city gardeners or the HOAs, and they're pulling out petunias and putting petunias back in, or I wonder why we spend so much time replacing and putting back in, and those plants aren't benefiting the pollinators. So give it a shot. Even if you don't use the garden kit program, I don't take any offense. Just pick up a native plant here too. I got a lot of my sticky monkey flower from the 4-inch variety from Theodore Payne. They are phenomenal. It's just a little out of the way for me, but there's so many great resources out there. I encourage people to avail themselves of any of the resources. CNPS obviously is a great asset in this space as well.
Were there any other questions or comments? Mary?
I have one more comment to make. Eric, I don't know if you know about it, but Tree of Life Nursery, they have all kinds of blogs on their website. Blogs, what do they call it? Beginner blogs. And people can go to Tree of Life Nursery, and they have a very large emphasis on education, and you can look at all these little blogs, and it's really wonderful. And what's great is people can go there, look at that. They're not obligated. They don't have a bunch of paper that they have to go through and look up things about plants. It's just really a great resource. So
That's fantastic.
yeah,
Yeah, we did source our Gambellia speciosa from Tree of Life. So I drove down there in September, got a chance to meet some people down there. Really nice folks as well, which is just what I love to see. I was down in San Diego for one of my son's soccer tournaments, and I got a chance to go out to Moosa Creek. Just a lot of great people in this, I'll say ecosystem, but working in native plants. And I think everyone I've found is just so welcoming. I met with Anne Marie a couple months ago, Ben's, and she was fantastic. And just she presented at a conference that one of my colleagues went to. So yeah, there's just so much there. I see a question about the zone. So what I will say is that we are developing the coastal one specifically as we bring on a partnership with the water district serving Malibu. What we do have in that chart, so I mentioned on the one half of the page or one side, we have the 3-dimensional rendering and the landscape schematic, and then on the back there's a chart and it talks about which zones the plants in each kit. It's not necessarily like I say this kit is good for zones 3. We use the old Sunset. I know there's like the USDA zone and there's the several different ones, but we use the one that Sunset Magazine had put out, and it seemed to have disappeared. But I know Calscape, I think, also uses that, if I'm not mistaken, that same 1 through 24 zones, and one's like up in Arrowhead and up there. But those zones are listed on the chart that we provide. And if there's ever a question, I'm always happy to answer that. But I don't currently post that on the website, say, this kit works in zones 2, 3, 5, 7, 8, 10, and 12. But I do have that information on the maintenance chart that's on the back of it.
Okay, great. Anybody else? All right, then. Thank you very much, Eric, and good luck. I hope this program continues, and we'll keep an eye on it. And maybe you'll have some kind of update of, 2 years later, all the beautiful gardens that are out there. A tour.
We'd love to. And if you know Melina Watts, she was trying to advocate for a tour in kind of the Las Virgenes's zone district area. So that is a conversation, but maybe in a few years, once people have planted a few. Like I said, I'm not a designer, but I'd love for people to come check out my yard. It's like, hey, this is what it looks like. It's a work in progress, but I think sharing and being advocates for it is instrumental.
All right, thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to end the program.
Thank you, Snowdy. Thank you, Mary.
Take care.
Thank you, Bill,
best.
George.
thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.